Over the course of these lessons, we've been exploring how healthcare providers can simultaneously improve quality, access, and affordability. What we've come down to is that improving on all three, not one versus the other, depends on adopting a more sophisticated approach to managing the delivery of care. We said, well, what does that more sophisticated approach look like? We said, well, before we even get to what it looks like, let's recognize the challenge organizations have to overcome. And that challenge is the complexity of the systems they have to support to bring care to patients. That complexity arises from having to bring together people doing work across many different functions and disciplines and specialties and making sure those individual component elements integrate well. So we started talking through what prevents organizations from succeeding and what allows other organizations to succeed. We said, well, one, you need a deliberate, methodical approach towards integration, bringing the pieces together into a well-functioning system. But then we said, well, that's not enough. First of all, when you integrate pieces into a whole, there is a chance you're not going to get everything quite right. So you need to improve off that base. The other thing, the demands on the system may change over time, and as they change, you need to be able to adapt. So what you need to have is a capacity not only for integration, but for dynamic improvement, dynamic innovation, dynamic invention. We said, well, what is required for that? And we talked through how certain organizations are very good and other organizations rather poor at responding to the weak signals, the early indications that something is amiss, responding to those before they have a chance to coalesce and compound into catastrophe. People in the system have to be able to see problems so that those problems can be solved. But it begs the question, what are the necessary conditions so that problems can be both seen and solved? See, here's the problem. Someone who's doing the day-to-day work of an organization may experience a problem, but that problem may have its root causes way back in the system, far from where they actually do their work, and far beyond their span of authority and responsibility. So they need some way to escalate the problem to the attention of someone who can actually help solve it. And when we talk through this issue of escalation, we realize that there are certain conditions necessary for escalation to occur in a reliable fashion. First, the people doing work have to recognize that they're having a problem, which means that with them you have to define what normal is so they can recognize an abnormality. When they experience an abnormality, they have to have someone to whom they can draw attention to that abnormality so they can get help solving the problem. Third, even if they have someone to whom they reach out when they have the abnormality, when they have the problem, when they have the difficulty, they have to have a way of reaching that person. Even if they reach that person, it's necessary that when that person shows up, they show up with the right attitude. Not with a finger wagging, what did you do wrong? This went wrong last time. Didn't I tell you to do your work? Da-da-da-da-da. They have to show up and say, what went wrong? Why do you think it went wrong? And let's work together to make the system more reliable so it's more dependable when you try to do your work providing care to patients. And there's one other element there. Even if people recognize abnormality, recognize problems when they occur, they have someone to whom they can draw attention. They have a way of getting that person's attention, and it's the right type of attention which shows up. Those people need time and resources to solve the problem together. Because just as it takes effort and creativity and skill to treat patients who are sick, it takes exactly the same things, time, effort, energy, skill, to treat systems which are sick and need to be made more reliable, more healthy, and more dependable.